How was your gate, James?
Very good. Thank you.
All right, we don't need to put you in a home yet.
No problems here.
In my opinion, the future of digital health is still going to be coming through connected fitness.
I'd like to put out the notion of agentic AI as something I'm watching really, really closely.
The next stage of the rise of GLP-1s.
But, I've never really seen the government say, we want to explore what wearables can do. And so that's another signal that this market's going to take off. And there's, look at this. A lot of attention is going to be put on it. So something people should be watching for.
I'm looking forward to 2026 and like a reimagining of the fundamental role of hospital websites.
Whether people like it or not, we're in for round 2 of Why Are You Asking Dr. Google? It is Dr. ChatGPT.
I got nothing else. I think I've said enough.
New choices, new players, new models of care. Consumer first healthcare is everywhere. For us to build the future, to see what's new, we gotta look at the world from a different point of view. Consumer innovation ain't going away. I say it's here to stay. Today it leads the way. We gotta drop the silos. We're all the same team. Experience, business, tech, and marketing. So join us now. Join the revolution. Consumer first health is the evolution. Status quo or like status no. Yeah, this is the healthcare rap. Yo, come on, let's go.
Welcome back to the leading podcast about consumer-centered health. I'm Jared Johnson, and this is episode 476. Today we have the Flava of the week about the 2 sides of digital health. How did Ryan Howells recently describe the dichotomy of the current state? And how can we join the side that feels optimistic and energized by the work that's being done? I'll talk about that. Then Zain and I welcome our OG guest co-host, James Gardner, to wrap up our annual predictions series. We keep ourselves accountable to last year's predictions and share 7 new trends that we're watching as we head into the new year. It's time for the awesomeness, y'all. So for the last time in 2025, let's get it.
Flava of the week.
Well, we did it, fellow healthcare leaders. 2025 is coming to an end, and we're still standing on our feet. We endured, we refused to stay knocked down, and we stayed resilient through a lot of crap. In the immortal words of Gavin Rossdale, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. Some days that's all I could claim as a victory, continuing to breathe. While I was searching for the right words to describe reaching the end of the most unpredictable year since COVID, I had one of those moments. I stumbled across a post that represents how I see the world better than I can express it myself. In this case, it was a post by Ryan Howells from Levitt Partners, where he summarized the dichotomy of health tech today and the challenges and opportunities that are standing right in front of us. So rather than try to recreate it, let's just read straight from the source. He said, "There's a fascinating dynamic occurring in healthcare right now. On the one hand, healthcare is at its breaking point. Clinician and health systems getting their budgets whacked and dramatically cutting back on any type of innovation just to keep the lights on. State budgets eliminating entire departments because of massive budget cuts. Health plans undergoing regular layoffs and struggling to find profitable lines of business. VCs dumping a crazy amount of money into health AI companies with the hope of an eventual eye-popping return, which appears increasingly unlikely. Consumers who have lower access, higher costs, and uneven quality of care, all while holding a clipboard. Data holders who are hoarding data under the assumption it will be a competitive advantage in the next contracting dispute. Policymakers who are working to try and make a difference but are understaffed or who can't come to an effective compromise. And VBC companies who are losing enormous amounts of money because of the industry's gravitational pull back to fee-for-service. This isn't working, and many who I talk to do not know how to get out of this downward spiral. Many agree we're setting ourselves up for mutual destruction in a net zero-sum game where everyone loses. Yet, something else is also happening. There are those who are playing a non-net zero-sum game where they're working on solutions to enable everyone to win. They're energized and actively working every day to flip the narrative. They believe collaboration is greater than competition. Transparency is greater than secrecy. Problem solving is greater than complaining. The future is greater than the past. Data sharing is greater than data hoarding. Abundance is greater than scarcity. Open is greater than proprietary. Consensus is greater than perfection. I remain incredibly optimistic and energized by the amazing people who I see and work with every day who are playing this non-net zero-sum game. We will succeed when we see each other as humans, not competitors, and engage on a personal level, ideally face-to-face. Let's share more about why healthcare is so personal for each of us and why we got into this industry in the first place. Be honest with each other. Be more empathetic. We can do it. We must do it. Then he invites more of us to engage where this collaboration is occurring. And then he mentions the CMS health tech ecosystem, TEFCA, and various organizations that advocate for health data open standards. I really couldn't have said it better myself. And so what better way to wrap this year than with a mic drop moment from a leader whom I greatly respect and who offered his predictions on this show just a couple of episodes ago nonetheless. So check out episode number 474 if you haven't yet. In the meantime, I can't wait to see what comes next. Let's choose to feel optimistic and energized by the work that's being done to enable a future that's truly greater than the past. That's another way that we'll build the healthcare of tomorrow, and that's the Flava of the week. Hey y'all, I'm here with Israel Crush, founder of Hyro. Israel, what's an easy to understand example of how an AI agent can help consumers in their health journeys?
A simple section would be the fact that instead of enrolling into Medicaid and proving that you're eligible once a year, you need to do it once every 6 months. Patients don't know that. So we said, you know what, we're going to get ahead of that and we're going to educate patients about some of those changes and try to get them re-enrolled or redetermine their enrollment into those programs to make sure that one, they're covered, and two, that the health system gets paid or reimbursed for those patients. So I think that's like a clear win-win where you create an AI agent that is proactively helping both patients and health systems with issues that they face and make, again, the journey a little less complicated.
Thanks, Israel. Visit hyro.ai for more information. That's HYRO.ai. And tell them you heard about it on Healthcare Wrap. All right, everyone, let's get into the flow. We are rounding out our prediction series for 2026, and we're rounding out the year 2025. This will be our last episode of the year. And as always, this is our tradition now, here with Zain and James Gardner, to offer our own views of what we expect to see. So, guys, welcome back.
Hey, good to be here. How many times have we done this prediction episode now? Like 4 or 5? Time just flies, right, James?
Yeah, it is becoming a rite of passage at the end of the year. I look forward to it so much.
Yeah, this is at least our third, maybe fourth.
I think at some point, maybe like mid-year, we can like go over all the predictions episodes and like really say, okay, where were we right? Where were we wrong?
What fun would that be?
everything we've talked about.
This will be our fourth year, it looks like.
I'm not a big fan of this whole accountability thing, Zain.
Well, what would content be if we were held accountable? But what have you guys been up to? What's coming in the new year?
I'm just back from some Thanksgiving travels that had me in Michigan. So I was in Zain's backyard, which was wonderful. And definitely looking forward to the Christmas break where I'll be up in Toronto with family and friends.
We've been busy in the consulting world, so just finishing a few projects. Was down with actually Crystal Broy, who is well known on this podcast, down with the team at the Medical University of South Carolina, so down in Charleston. And then I actually booked a trip to Mexico. So personal travel is in February. And so I'm excited about that to break up the cold Detroit winter. But I need to work on my Mexico body. And so I got to be careful about holidays. I don't eat too much.
How about you, Jared?
Well, I was just getting back from Thanksgiving gatherings with family and really enjoyed that.
Hopefully in the new year, the three of us can be somewhere at the same conference or city. I'll be at ACHE. So if any of y'all can make it down there to Houston, I think it is, it would be great to get some time together in person.
Let's find some time in the year to do that for sure. So this is how this will work. As we have done for the last few years, we each have, I think, 2 to 3 predictions. We'll just kind of go round robin style in terms of just something that we're seeing in the broader healthcare ecosystem that we have a feeling we'll either be talking more about or just something we expect or even hope to see in the new year and maybe beyond there, just things that we're seeing. So I figured maybe I'll start. We haven't done this before. Talking about accountable. I found a summary of our predictions from last year. So maybe we can go quickly through these because a couple of them actually, I think, key into some things we're going to talk about again this year. But the first one was the continued rise of connected fitness. I think that was easy for us to spot. We've been talking about it really since the beginning and might be talking about more about that today. So definitely there. Second, the hospital of the future. I think we were talking about like connected devices and more AI driven in clinic pieces, as well as like what specialties does the hospital actually cover? Does the migration continue towards outpatient clinics and urgent cares and things like that? So I didn't see anything too majorly on that either direction. So I think that's a win. I don't know. I think we got that one.
I have a question for you, Jared and Zain. Part of the vision for the hospital of the future was more care moving into the home. And we recently saw Best Buy kind of pull back from a lot of its investment in that sector. But the business continues, just in the hands of new owners. What's our take on that? Is it still a thing to have care delivered outside the four walls of a hospital and in people's homes?
I would say it is, from what I'm hearing, James, even through some of our clients, is through my day job, is it is very difficult to get hospital systems to refer into some of these programs. Physicians are just so stuck in their ways of, keeping patients in hospital or some other type of rehab center that's a physical place, getting physicians to identify the appropriate patient that can be seen in home, and then having enough volume for those that are offering the in-home care so that the business model makes money. What I'm hearing, that's the problem, so to speak. I actually saw this a little bit during COVID. When I was still with Henry Ford Health System, we built an overflow unit for COVID, and almost nobody came into the overflow unit because the patient profile got so restrictive. So it was like only this type of person with this, but not this, but has this, and is wearing a pink sock can make it into the program, right? Because hospitals are so risk averse. And so some of this is just like cultural. And like, how do you put the home care program into the normal workflow of like a discharge planning nurse, right? And then getting physician sign off. So I think it's still going to be a thing. It's just going to take some time for people to get used to it again, right? And then I think reimbursement there's probably some opportunities there.
Yeah, I was going to go that direction. Reimbursement continues to be the biggest thing why it hasn't made the leap to the majority of health systems. You still have innovative systems out there that keep their programs. Mass General Brigham continues to be one of the early adopters, and it's still out there. Program exists, just like with any big shift like that. You do have to take into consideration the clinical training and everything. But the reimbursement, like every time the government shuts down, this is one of the things that gets pulled. That's what happened this year again. It happened last year. It happened with the previous shutdown. So there's a big push right now. The vote might even happen. My understanding is before this episode gets published, for a permanent 5-year extension of the hospital at home waivers, which includes some telemedicine extensions as well. There's only so much you can do. Best Buy did place their bets there. And although they sold the current health system back to its original founder, Chris McGee, and it's still running, that's still the platform that they're using. It's just not owned by them. So it looks way better on the balance sheet to do it that way, I guess.
Well, I continue to be bullish on it. It's more economical. Patients prefer it. And the care is, from what I've been led to understand, similar, if not even better than what's delivered in a lot of conventional hospital settings. So there's a lot of potential there.
Let's see. Number 3 we had from last year, health systems going from a green light to a yellow light. I recall this one just had to do with overall approaches to consumer innovation, to investments in consumer experience. And that is absolutely, many have even gone to a red light, I'd say at this point. It just is less of a priority than it was a year ago. And that was less of a priority than it was before that. It drops below, let's figure out everything about AI and let's invest more in our EMR ecosystems. And then if any of those things happen to make any part of a consumer experience better, then great. But as opposed to, hey, that's our focus, let's invest there first. So definitely saw that. So that was probably kind of a basic one. Number 4 is public sentiment in healthcare institutions weakening. I feel like this was one, Zain, that you brought, and I think you nailed it.
I definitely think it's still a thing. I know we're going through the open enrollment period right now. My healthcare premiums went up. Luckily, I have an employer that covers a lot of it, but I still had to pay more out of pocket this year. And I've just been seeing that increasingly on social media. Even people with good white collar jobs are starting to realize, holy smokes, right? So both on the institution side, the provider side, and then also the payer side, everyone's starting to realize this ain't working and we need to have some new opportunities. And so I've seen a lot of great posts from Dr. Paul Thomas at Plum Health, who's obviously pumping the direct primary care model, which is much, much cheaper, not a be all and end all. I think the public at large is wondering, where is all this money going? Why is healthcare so expensive? And that will continue.
Number 5 was strengthening the primary care backbone. As I recall, this may have been in relation to how we see it working in other countries, even some of our neighbors up north, of understanding there's an entryway, there is a certain amount of primary care that the on-ramp to it is much easier to figure out. And then other services and things kind of happen after that in various directions. But that really felt like an opportunity, as I recall. Again, don't recall any big advancements or news items necessarily about it this year. I mean, there are some on the health policy side, I suppose, that are working that direction. So more on the prevention, things that are happening recently in the last few weeks. So,
one signal might be what Lumeris is doing with Tom, where they're really trying to apply AI to reimagine primary care. And in a sense, we're doubling out on primary care and people are starting to realize this is where it's at. If we're going to save U.S. healthcare, it's likely going to start in primary care and doing things a lot better.
And then the last one was advanced workplace health programs. Trying to place that one.
Yeah, this one was, in my mind, if I remember right, this was all about the notion of direct to employer. And so both new entrants in health and health systems thinking about creating programs, whether it be in primary care, urgent care, occupational medicine, second opinions, even surgical bundles that essentially can be sold directly to employers for cash as a way to try to bring down costs. And on the employer side, employers can kind of control where employees are going to control their costs too, right? So you think about Walmart employees, if they need surgery, a lot of them go to Cleveland Clinic. They have arrangements with them. Transcarent's a great example in the disruptor space who's helping coordinate some of this stuff. And then just like Concentra, they're in urgent care, but they do a lot of occupational health and have all these relationships with employers around the country. And so I think you'll see more and more of that as employers can't bear the cost anymore, right? And even passing it to employees is not going to work. So we'll see what continues to happen.
Our scorecard isn't too bad from a year ago.
I think we're doing pretty good.
If I do say so ourselves.
Give ourselves all a pat on the
back. I think we're just lucky through the healthcare app community. We hear so many signals from so many different parts of the industry. Who better than this trio to put it all together and start to make sense where the future is going to land?
James, why don't we start with you? We'll just go round robin in terms of just one a piece. And James, you want to give us your first, and we'll add any color, and then Zain will give us one, and we'll just go that way.
Absolutely. So with a huge hat tip to a friend of the podcast, Matt Sear, I'd like to put out the notion of agentic AI as something I'm watching really closely. And I know Matt is too. Agentic AI is, I think, where the next generation of AI is taking us. It's autonomous agents, hence agentic AI, empowered to act on our behalf, which is a scary notion. But on some level, we've all experienced it if we've used marketing automation or even tools like Zapier to automate mundane tasks. But I think we're going to see, with the advent of the latest Gemini model and where ChatGPT is going, super smart agents that in our personal lives can take care of booking a restaurant, a movie, an Uber, all on our behalf, with some oversight, of course. We might not feel comfortable having to purchase an airline ticket, but if we've all had the blessing of working with a smart executive assistant, This is that same notion, right? They're empowered within certain guardrails to make decisions on our behalf. And when those guardrails are kind of at risk of being broached, they come to us for a decision. So I think we're going to see that more and more in the workplace and in a way that's really going to change how a lot of us do our day-to-day work. And I was especially excited about an announcement from Google called Workspace Studio. There's 3 billion users around the world that are in that Google universe of Gmail, Google Drive, and whatnot. And they've recently announced a set of agentic tools that work across all of the Google tools in that network, using the smarts and the brains of Google Gemini to automate all kinds of tasks. And not just automate, but bring judgment, bring intelligence, bring decision-making capabilities, and the ability to take action to the table. And there's no end to the hours of work that could be saved, which is just scratching the surface. I think it's going to take us into places that we can't even anticipate today. So that's my thought.
I'm afraid.
And thanks, Matt, for cheerleading this topic. It's something he feels strongly about, and he's gotten me really excited about it.
I think he's right. You're right. Agentic search and agentic e-commerce is here. You're seeing it in other industries, and at some point, it's going to hit healthcare in a big way. I think to your point in the pre-show, James, the future of hospital websites is in question, or maybe just the configuration of these websites. And then what I would say, thinking about my day job and consulting for hospital systems, there's still a lot of hospital systems who are not making who are not, how do I say this? Who are not transaction ready, meaning open and online scheduling. As much as that's like an old school capability now, there's a lot of houses, particularly in the mid-market, who aren't really there that in any big way. And you're going to lose huge if you can't make your appointments across primary care, urgent care, in specialty and ancillary services available for agents to book. And so if you're a hospital leader sitting on your laurels right now, good luck. There's a good chance you might start losing some market share.
I like it.
Well, if I could, Jared, that's a nice segue to the second theme that I was going to bring up. But since Zain has gone there, I'll go there too. I'm looking forward to 2026 and like a reimagining of the fundamental role of hospital websites. And I'll give a hat tip here to Carrie Lycan, also a friend of ours and a friend of the show. She's been bringing forward some really provocative thinking around the nature of the traditional hospital website, especially in the era of AI overviews and search, right? We've all been doing Google searches, and increasingly we're seeing not just blue links, which push the work back on us to explore and assess, but we're seeing AI overviews, which give us answers, which ultimately is what most of us want, especially for top of funnel searches, which in healthcare could be condition information. When you're getting answers that are comprehensive, thorough, powered by all the brains of Google Gemini, you don't need to actually visit the hospital website. So the notion of like having dense content and using it as a search engine magnet, that is falling into question, I would say. And we're already seeing a number of websites with significant traffic drop-offs, including some in the healthcare world. So it's definitely a thing, and it's only going to increase, right? Google's rolling out AI overviews into more and more search results. So if your website is built around the notion of dense content, using it as a search engine magnet, I think you've got to question that. Now, that would like bring us to, okay, well, we still need to transact. And that was the point Zain made. Ideally, you've got open scheduling and people can self-book. And traditionally, that's had to happen on the hospital website itself. But I think we can all imagine a future, which we're already seeing with ChatGPT and Gemini, where you can transact in line in that chat experience. It's happening in retail, right? There's already partnerships with Walmart and Target where in line in that experience, you can make purchases. Likewise, a partnership with PayPal. So you can pay for goods and services in line in that same browser tab. So it's not unimaginable to me that urgent care clinics, hospitals, and others will start exposing their inventory, which is, available appointments, and making that part of that inline experience, which completely negates the entire role of traditional hospital websites. If the content is in line with ChatGPT and Gemini, and you can complete the appointment scheduling, there's not much left for traditional websites. So it's a provocative imagining of where we're going, but we're already seeing it with AI overviews and content dropping off. We're already seeing it in the world of retail. So why can't it happen in the world of healthcare? And of course, there's probably 10 reasons why it will be slow to happen in healthcare, but I fundamentally don't see a reason why it can't.
In my mind, James, it's almost like another angle of what we've always talked about on the podcast is like the commoditization of healthcare, where now through agents, people will just go to the website just to complete the transaction. They don't care about the US News and World Report awards. They don't care about the latest donation. They don't necessarily care about the new tower and all the press releases. They don't even care about the physicians in their bios, maybe a little bit. But they just want to get that appointment. And by the way, it's not even going to be them doing it anymore. It's their agent on their behalf. And so it'll be interesting to see how hospital leaders, especially culturally, adapt to this, right? And hotels had to do this way back in the day when all these third-party intermediary booking sites started to show up, where suddenly they realize, you know what? People don't necessarily care about us as the brand. They just need a bed, right? And a good enough bed, a good enough bathroom. And mind you, the whole point system showed up, which kind of help combat that, but I'm seeing the same thing in healthcare. And so it'll be interesting to culturally observe how health system leaders deal with this.
That's a really interesting parallel, Zain.
Play devil's advocate a little bit, just on the thought of the practical side of what it'll take out there. I think there's a lot of value in seeing this on the horizon at some point. In the short-term future, I have a hard time knowing the challenges of getting existing data that backs a website, everything from find a doctor to appointment scheduling to everything in between to consumer marketing interactions and things like all the data that sits below a website right now. Hospitals still can't figure that out. So I would say, like, if there's promise, if this makes the process easier, if through any of these new platforms, that process can be replaced by something better, integrating provider and location data, 20 years later, like, we're still not figuring it out. It is nuts. So I'd be even more hopeful if we can replace that. If we're just talking about like the comparisons with hospitality or hotels or whatever, if any of these sources plan to be able to make a conversational interface be the only thing, like, there's still going to be a contingent of people. I'll actually give a shout out to Scott Schuster, because he just mentioned this. I just floated this on an episode just a couple of weeks ago to him and Teresa Lockamy of, will there be hospital websites in 5 years? And kind of flippantly, and Scott had one good point. He said, like, there's always going to be a contingent of people who have stopped trying new technology and they're just going to want the old way of doing it. So, like, you may not be able to do away with it completely in the next few years, kind of a thing. Like, there's still going to be people who are just so familiar with it that way. So I don't know, like, I think my mind is swimming in that world of trying to integrate the data, which is still such a big challenge now. And I think the other side of it is just to say, like, you mentioned, James, like, is there a room or space or a strategy for content-driven websites in the future? I don't know if it's on a hospital website as much, but like, we'll need good vetted health content more than ever. So maybe that's more of a conversation of like, where can it live? Like, where can all this vetted, content from sources that have invested the time and created good content? Like, we're just going to need it more than ever because people are just there's so much misinformation. So maybe, it sounds like, we're all talking the same thing. I'm thinking very practically about all that stuff.
I would agree with all that. Certainly it paints a picture in the future where one of the critical priorities for the digital team at any hospital is going to be a reliable provider of data, if not content, but data around the inventory that the hospital has available. So that's never going to go away, because that's going to be something. If you're going to be scheduling appointments, you have to have reliable availability of information. And trusted content, that's always going to be important. But it looks like ChatGPT and Gemini, they prefer the Mayo, they prefer the Cleveland Clinic, they prefer the NIH. Like, they've got a handful of go-tos. And the notion of like 500 websites all providing information around asthma, like, it's not necessary.
A lot of them are pulling from the same source anyway. Sources.
True.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So plenty to think about. I don't disagree with Scott. The future always happens slower than we think, right? There's still people that want to call and make appointments.
I could see a handful trying this though, like in 2026, like some kind. Yeah, for sure.
My team and I did some research recently, and calling for an appointment is still very popular amongst some segments of the population. And so I think all of us would agree that we're not suggesting that agentic e-commerce, agentic search is going to totally take all the volume, but it's certainly going to be a big player at some point.
Yeah, maybe the question is, who's going to be first? And it's going to be one of the more tech-forward providers, Amazon, right? Or even CVS with their Minuteman facilities. All it takes is one to kind of break the dam, and then others are
follow suit.
Yes.
Very true.
That's all I got.
Great predictions.
Hey y'all, I'm here with Sina Arham, founder of Friday's Health. Sina, what do you think is broken in the traditional approach to metabolic health, and what are you doing to flip the script?
Let's be honest, the moment in metabolic health is being driven by the GLP-1 receptor agonist class of medications, right? We finally have something that is addressing metabolic health, obesity, and type 2 diabetes in an elegant fashion, right? It's efficacious, it's manageable for patients. And so I think we're having our moment in metabolic health in that the old guard of tackling metabolic health and obesity has a lot of stigma attached to it, a lot of shame and blame and guilt.
Thanks, Sina. Visit joinfridays.com for more information and tell them you heard about it from the Healthcare Wrap.
All right, Zain.
All right. Well, my forecast, actually, as we're talking, let me see if I can connect the two. And so I think I've mentioned the same forecast for the last two episodes, and that is that, in my opinion, the future of digital health is still going to be coming through connected fitness. And there's a lot of examples that we'll get into in a second. But before we get to that, if we zoom out, even with everything James just brought to us, what's really happening if you zoom out is through the proliferation of ChatGPT, all these LMs, all these tools, in my opinion, consumers are realizing they have agency in their health. They're searching, they're understanding, they're coming to appointments, whether they're booked through ChatGPT or not, with knowledge. I know people that are taking pictures of lesions they have on their hand and getting a decent derm answer, right? So consumers are empowering themselves. And I feel like it's also helping men to, as consumers get more educated on their bodies, it may start to drive this, I guess it would be a sub-theme around the use of wearables. And so, because why not, right? The more you know about your body, maybe like, hey, I want to start tracking XYZ thing. And so the big theme here is, first of all, agency, but still definitely believe that wearables and connected fitness are going to be one of the front doors, if you will, to digital health. And so if we think back like 5 years ago, wearables were mostly about step counts, calories burned, and sleep duration. But now companies like Oura, Fitbit, Whoop, all that have been on the show, I don't think we've gotten Fitbit yet. We'll see if we can get them. Companies are pushing wearables into continuous surveillance. So with features like ECG level heart rhythm screening for arrhythmia, AFib, tachycardia, bradycardia, detailed heart rate variability, recovery, readiness metrics. They're not just measuring what you do anymore. They're measuring how your body is functioning. And so, for example, I wear one of these. It's still a Fitbit. I might switch to Whoop at some point. But like, I can tell when I go out drinking, like my heart rate variability changes. And frankly, it's changed my behavior, right? Because there's something psychological about seeing the change in the graph. It's like, wait, maybe I should only have no drinks or maybe just one, right? So the shift is lowers the barrier for consumers to get those early warning signals about cardiovascular, metabolic, stress-related issues, potentially before they become serious. So people who don't normally go to clinics regularly, wearables can become that first line of defense. And we know informally in talking to some of these companies that they know a lot more than they're saying about the folks that use their wearables, and they can tell when you're sick. Do they have programs yet where they immediately connect you to actual clinical care? No, but I suspect that's coming. And so in my mind, wearables will now serve as sort of this passive health data recorder. And again, we keep seeing more and more signals that this is happening 24/7 wherever you go. And so that's one big theme in my head that we should keep monitoring for. And it's not just on the wearable side, but also like gyms. And so we're seeing some of these premium gyms now start to offer different for a fee, obviously, different services that put them more in the health world. And so we've seen that, I think it's Equinox and Lifetime Health come out with lab-based biomarker testing. I think there's one offering that's like $40,000 a year and you get like health coaching, all this stuff. Obviously, these are the premium gyms. I don't go to a premium gym. I go to Super Hood, bodybuilding gym in Highland Park, Michigan. But I do have some friends that are over at Equinox and Lifetime, and man, they have all these things, and then combined with the wearable. And so again, the conversation now is moving from just tracking steps to tracking your heart rate, truly now to like, how do we optimize health? How do we bring you longevity? I think that's very popular with Whoop now. Everyone wants to know their Whoop age. You hope it's less than your actual age, right? And so I think this is something that traditional hospital and health system leaders need to be watching for, because at some point, these tools are going to turn into the triage tool and the front door into actual clinical care. And you better hope that you're one of those partners on the back end where some of these individuals will come to you when they actually need some type of physical intervention. And so that's my thought.
I really like how that can inform just the overall approach to, like, in my mind, a better society is one that's less sick. Whether hospitals and health systems can figure out the economic model around that, I'd rather have fewer people sick in society. So it's not just market share of people being sick. That's just one economic driver here. And we should all be hoping for that. We should all be finding that out. Like, there's the reality of you as a consumer are the one to navigate that and be your own quarterback there. Like, your health system just isn't going to do it. Your primary care doctor can do certain aspects of it, but you have to do the rest.
Agency. And I think on the show, we're going to talk about rural health here in a second, but let me draw the connection. If you look at the CMS Rural Health Transformation Program, one of the specific areas they're funding is actually wearables, which we've never really seen before. But, I've never really seen the government say, we want to explore what wearables can do. And so that's another signal that this market's going to take off, and there's a lot of attention is going to be put on it. So something people should be watching for.
I'm probably late to the party, as I often am, but I was exploring some settings in my iPhone. And obviously it's had the ability to track steps for a long time, but they've recently added more diagnostic functioning, basically a gait analysis. So looking at your left-right body tilt as you walk, looking at the average length of your footsteps, all of which are proxies for propensity to fall, right? Which is a huge problem, especially amongst the elderly. But I was so impressed. We wouldn't consider the iPhone to be a wearable in the classic sense of the word, but they've added all kinds of capabilities within that existing experience.
Well, let's hope your gait is good. How is your gait, James?
Very good. Thank you.
All right, we don't need to put you in a home yet.
No problems here. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll try to connect mine to that as well. I think these are going to all be pretty interrelated. My first one is the corollary to that, which is the next stage of the rise of GLP-1s. There are several announcements that have happened just in the last few weeks for reduced prices. GoodRx now, you can have a $39 a month telehealth visit regarding your weight loss or metabolic health. And then they offer Ozempic and Wegovy prescriptions for $199 a month. There are partners now like Costco with Sesame offering that. I think it's still in $250 a month, $250, maybe $300 a month. The Trump RX program just announced reduced prices as well in that same neighborhood. The cash pay price for any of the name brand GLP-1s used to be $1,000 plus, $1,400 plus, whatever a month. The fact that there are multiple players having these price wars, along with all the compounded options for them, is just speaking to the popularity isn't going away. There are results happening with them. And I think there's a renewed understanding that it's not just people are only doing them when they're trying to shortcut the principles of exercising and eating well, that this is a shortcut by any means. I think there have been enough results for people to understand that's not the only reason people do it, and that there are pretty substantial results with it. And then the other side of that, I think that will just it's going to take off even more are the oral versions. So the pill versions that are coming. I haven't kept up recently, so I don't know if it's a matter of weeks or months, but they're coming soon. They'll be even cheaper. And I mean, you just wait. I don't think the thought of injecting it by a needle has kept many people away from trying it who have wanted to, but you better believe they're going to be even more popular. I recall several of the conversations we've had with some of these telehealth weight loss and primary care providers on the show, all the way down to Sesame and Wheel, and then Noom a couple of times, Wonder Health, Shed, Fridays, Form, and Novo Nordisk. They're all kind of saying the same thing, in that GLP-1s are going to be a thing that just about everyone uses, and the uses for them will continue to increase. So I honestly I kind of thought the growth was going to peak, and then I just hear about these new prices and pill versions and more results overall. And I'm wow, I just want to keep up to speed on where the understanding of it is, because it's pretty remarkable.
If anyone's doubting that, I mean, we could just look to Wall Street's reaction. And we also had Lilly hit $1 trillion valuation just a week or two ago. So that's a huge milestone, and it's an indication that Wall Street believes. Yeah, that's rarefied air.
So my next and last one is, I guess it kind of connects with what we've been talking about. But in my mind, in addition to the wearables, whatever, there is now emerging this sort of constellation of care. So digital care. So what I mean by that is new entrants and disruptors in health who provide very specific services, but cross-refer between each other. And so in a sense, eventually it could get to the place where an individual is receiving most of their low acuity care from a constellation of digital providers right into their home, right? And some of these also have partnerships with lab and pharmacy. And so for your everyday stuff, it's being delivered through some of these disruptors as opposed to your traditional hospital system. So I think it's something that traditional healthcare leaders need to watch out for, because some of that market share data isn't immediately present or easy to find. And so you may not even realize you're losing the competition. A little anecdote I've shared on the show before, in the building that I live in here in Detroit, about 1.5 years ago, I started to notice that there are a significant number of packages in our package room from Hims and Hers. I had no idea that many people are actually using the service, and I see it in the mailroom. And so a little clue that these things are starting to take off in a big way. But probably the biggest signal that we saw this year is really what Amazon's been sort of doing this space around, call it its health benefits connector. And so Amazon has, for those of you that don't realize, has been partnering through Amazon.com with all these different new entrants and health disruptors and health digital disruptors to basically help Amazon customers identify when through their employer they have a benefit to use these services and connect them, right? Amazon's great at connecting you to products, services, whatever, based on your buyer psychology. So why not try to connect them to healthcare as well, as opposed to them delivering the service, right? And so groups like Omada Health, Teladoc, Hinge for MSK care, Talkspace for behavioral health, Rula for behavioral health, and then we've chatted with Faye Nutrition not too long ago, who they're also getting connected to Amazon's health benefits connector. So right there, you see this ecosystem of care emerging. It could become a challenge for health systems because I don't go to my MyChart every day to look around, but I do go to Amazon just about every day, right? And every now and then they say, hey, you're eligible for Hinge. Do you have some MSK issues? Let's connect you right away, right? And so again, it's like Amazon.com is kind of like the interface for all of humanity to get stuff, right? Including healthcare. And health system leaders need to be aware of that. I'm not sure how that changes given what we've talked about earlier with agentic, but I'm sure Amazon is already thinking about it and will be connecting their Amazon.com to whatever agentic tool, and they'll probably include health benefits as well. And so again, this ecosystem of other services is emerging, and Amazon is helping consumers understand their benefits and connect easily and quickly to those largely digital first healthcare benefits provided by their employer. And so that's the concept to watch out for.
It was really eye-opening to hear from Sam at Faye Nutrition about that whole process of the momentum behind it and the desire to have benefits you didn't even realize. I mean, there's a lot to that.
And I remember chatting with Whaley at Omada Health, who told us some huge number of people are eligible for their services and need their services, but just don't know, right? And I know, having worked at Henry Ford Health selling direct to employer, a lot of the employers we with struggled with getting their employees to understand what they have access to. And so again, Amazon is a great partner to help you understand what you might want and what you have access to and make it easy to serve it up. And so I think it's going to be a powerful ecosystem to watch as it moves forward.
All right, I'll try to connect my next one to when you were talking about connected fitness and wearables also, but it's the thought, we've covered it a little bit on the show, but there's real momentum now with digital health when it comes to rural health, rural areas. And the Rural Health Transformation Program itself pouring tens of billions of dollars over the next few years.
50 billion
total, right?
Over the next 5 years. Yep, over the next 5 years. That's crazy.
I think this is going to be one of the biggest under the radar transformations that we will have seen in recent years, because that is substantial. And when you talk about a lot of telehealth, remote options, non-in-person options, those are a lot more easy to see the value of for those living in rural areas, because it's oftentimes their only choice other than like a multi-hour drive to the doctor's office or whatever. So that's a pretty unprecedented amount of investment happening from the administration to be able to get that going. Right now, we're in the period where shortly after this episode is released, I think within a week or two, we'll hear who is awarded the money and how it's awarded to each state and to each player. So there were submissions put in over September and October and early November. It's just the beginning. And I don't know if we just haven't seen a decent amount of coverage, but I just think it's going to be bigger than the amount of coverage that we've seen about it. I think it's going to be pretty substantial. And I think that speaks well for those working in rural health who have had to be very creative. We've had plenty of guests on the show over the years too, who have had to get really creative about how to bring access to care digitally, how to set up a kiosk in a bank tied to a scheduling system, tied to the health system, get to know telehealth because there's no other choice. And I'm excited for what that could bring. Clearly, there's going to be the devil will be in the details, especially as the awards are announced here pretty soon. So I'm excited for that, though. I do think that will be something to keep our eyes on.
The other reason to watch this is almost like a cultural thing too, where you alluded to it, where rural health systems have no choice but to just innovate. And so for solution companies listening, people are in the digital health space that are trying to sell into health systems, you actually may get a lot more traction once they can find the budget in a rural system than some large urban academic system. Frankly, a lot of them can be very arrogant and too hard to organize, where some of these rural systems are willing, if they can just find the money, which here comes CMS with $50 billion, they'll try it because they have nothing in a sense, they have nothing to lose. It can't be worse than what it is. Well, maybe it could, but who knows? And so I think hopefully a lot of folks in the innovation world start to realize that maybe rural should be their first partner as opposed to the Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic or some big urban academic system, which is frankly something I've been saying on the show for a few years, having started my career off in rural health, where you can just do things easier. And so I'm hoping that how do I say it? I would say there's a lot of folks in the entrepreneurial innovation space who just want to work with these top tier brands, just like people want to wear fancy clothes. But hopefully they can start to see that your real partner, best partner, might actually be some health system you never heard of, some critical access hospital that will be willing to go all the way with you in your solution and prove it out and actually make some really significant improvements in those communities. So that's what I'm excited about, to see if that might shift a little.
I can bring this to life with a firsthand personal example of a company I've been working with that is tapping into the rural transformation funds. It's a company called Opio Connect, and they work in the opioid use disorder space. And they've made a name for themselves automating the back office of opioid treatment programs, essentially methadone clinics. One of the crappiest jobs imaginable to be a nurse or a pharmacist, dispensing methadone day in and day out. So there's immense turnover and it's high cost labor to begin with. So the company has developed a robotic methadone dose assembly solution that's taking away that drudgerous task and automating it, which is an incredible breakthrough for urban opioid treatment programs. But part two of the company's vision, which they're bringing to life as we speak, is a satellite robotic dispensing solution, which combines telehealth with robotics and will allow methadone to be dispensed in community pharmacies, federally qualified health clinics, community health centers, all locations in rural locations which don't justify a full-on opioid clinic today, but are in dire need of the gold standard for opioid use disorder treatment, which is methadone. So they're doing really exciting work, and they're tapping into that $50 billion fund in partnership with opioid treatment centers to push methadone into locations where there's an addicted population that desperately needs it. It's the opioid crisis continues, right? We're still in the tens of thousands of our fellow citizens dying every year through overdoses. And we need innovation like this outside of urban centers.
I like that concept also from a patient experience perspective. Years ago, I was involved in opening up a methadone clinic in a rural community hospital. And, what I learned is like how some folks who need this service are, how do I say this without being rude? Some people think of people who have addiction as being like poor and on the streets. But the methadone crisis is actually sometimes the opposite. Some of these people are very well-to-do, very prominent. You'd never know. And so privacy becomes even more of a thing. And so what you just described to me sounds like a very private and discreet model whereby people will come and get help and get the help they need. And so I love that from the patient experience perspective as well.
Yeah, there's benefits to the technology on many levels, cost being one of them, but the patient experience being another, nurse satisfaction being yet another, access to care being yet another. Like there's check. Yeah. That's why I'm a big fan of the company. I met them through Mass Challenge as a mentor, and then I've been supporting their leadership team for the past few months.
Whether people like it or not, we're in for round 2 of Why Are You Asking Dr. Google? It is Dr. ChatGPT. I do think it'll become the number one source of health information with TikTok right behind it, or maybe vice versa. But there's no stopping people from getting information there. As much I've heard a lot over the last few months from clinicians, or just read a lot of posts just lamenting the fact. I have seen on the flip side an article in Time magazine that featured, including the story of my son who diagnosed his own appendicitis because of ChatGPT and actually helped us figure out those first couple steps. Like, it was a really balanced article about like doctor approved ways to use ChatGPT or use AI in general. But I do think like there's nothing any individual doctor, health system provider, or anybody can do to stop people from getting information there. So it's the whole thought of, with Dr. Google, the whole concept from like the early 2010s was a lot of providers coming to appointments and all of a sudden patients coming with a whole bunch of information themselves and saying, well, I Googled it and it said this and it says I'm going to die or whatever. Like there were a lot of extreme cases of people saying like, this information is scaring me. And so granted, there's going to be plenty of that too. I just think like the inevitability is the thing like we just all have to be okay with. Like you can't change the fact that people are looking for information there and trust it more than other sources. So knowing that, how do you work backwards to say, what good information can I put out there to battle the misinformation that they might get somewhere else? That's where the whole conversation about Dr. Google led to a decade ago. And it's apparently time to have that conversation again. I was blessed to have conversations with a lot of clinicians back then, 10 years ago, who said, you know what, I see that too. There is plenty of information that is a lot of misinformation, a lot of stuff that Google does not get right. But I can't complain about all the bad information or misinformation if I'm not putting out any good information to kind of balance it out. So that, again, that's not meant to be, hey, providers, here's something else for you to do. But like there is just an air of inevitability about it. And when I spoke with Manuel Hoyer, so the head of health and wellness for TikTok at Health a few weeks ago. That's a great episode for anyone who wants to listen to it. It was really interesting because he said how quickly that category is growing, one of the fastest growing categories on the platform, no surprise. But I think he saw the value and understood that it's not just wellness influencers. Like there's opportunity for every entity in healthcare to put out information that they consider good and viable and trustworthy. And he talked a lot about trust of content. So that content is going to be out there. It's up to us whether we have enough out there to balance the stuff that we don't agree with or don't want. And the last dimension of it is, again, from the provider side, I have a lot of empathy. I have a lot of friends in the space. We speak with a lot of providers and others in health systems and administration, the business side. So I think we're champions of healthcare itself and of providers. There's a perspective I saw on LinkedIn just again recently of somebody who just thought it was just horrendous and abominable for anyone to get any information from anywhere on the internet still. And I just think like we're way past that. Like you can't stop it. And they're just like, yeah, I can't believe this and this. And they had a lot of doctors commenting on it too. It is. And I just had to be like, I just long for the day when that's not seen as something that doctors resent. And the patient's the person who's hurting, who wants to get better. They're doing all they can. They're exhausting all their options. It probably took a lot of time that they didn't want to have to take to get that information. So, don't be dismissive of it. Work with us as much as you can. If somebody comes and says, yeah, I had all this info from Google, ChatGPT, TikTok, wherever, and you as the doctors say like, that's not right. Like just acknowledge that's an attempt to get better, like not an attempt to challenge your authority. And I do think there's still going to take some time to get through that, but it's here and it's coming and you can't change it.
Well, what I'm hearing you're really saying is instead of thinking of it as like an insult to a physician's intelligence, reframe it to, wow, my patient is engaged in their care. They care about what their problems are. They're coming with research already. Like if I was a primary care doc, I'd be, this is great. Like someone wants to get well. Now I can help them. Now I can either provide different advice or confirming advice to get them there. The other anecdote I'll add, and again, just anecdotes I've been reading and hearing, is that a lot of consumers are looking for curative and restorative advice from ChatGPT. So not just, okay, what's the pill I can take to eliminate the pain, but why am I getting pain to begin with? And what do I need to do? Which might be a big rub because a lot of hospital systems traditionally, they're not in the business of, I got to preface this. In general, they're not always in the business of curing and restoring you, like bringing you back to how the universe intended your body to be. And so I wonder, as consumers take agency, start using these services, looking for the more curative and restorative approach, that actually might help health systems think about more value-based models because those two would align perfectly. But that's just a tangent for y'all to consider.
All right, so I'll recap these real quick. We have the rise of agentic AI, including the newest Google Workspace agentic tools, where that's possible. We have hospital websites becoming conversational and possibly transforming quite a bit. We have the continued rise of connected fitness, including wearables, the latest version of wearables, which empowers the agency of consumers even more. The more you know about your body, the more differently you approach care. We had reduced prices for GLP-1s and pill versions, making them even more popular. We had the emergence of the constellation of care to provide consumers several different digital health services that cross-connect with each other. Then we had the under-the-radar transformation of rural health and ChatGPT becoming the number one source of health information. Guys, I think we have a lot to look forward to this year with where things are going, but really appreciate this. We'll get this one up and posted too. We'll love to see what people think about where we have going with these. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just gratitude for being part of this, Zain and Jared. I look forward to it every year, and you've not disappointed again this time. It's super fun to be with you guys. And the accountability part, well, not such a fan. But it's probably for our own good, and hopefully you'll have me back 12 months from now.
Yeah, I just wish all of our listeners and partners and folks that have been on the show just a very happy new year, and thank everyone for being part of that healthcare rap community in big and small ways.
I'll share that gratitude from both of you. I'll echo that. This has been the biggest year we've ever had, I think, in terms of guests and just the lessons we've learned and the momentum. We'll keep going. There's a lot for us to keep rapping about, so we'll say that. Thanks so much for joining us today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone.